Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Loukoumi Foundation Dream Day series, conversation with the legendary Mr. Bob Costas. We're very excited to have Bob with us today, and I thank all of you for tuning in here in New York on this beautiful Saturday. I hope the weather is good in your part of the country as well. Before we get to our special event, I wanted to thank all the kids, especially who are on today. The Loukoumi Foundation now unites over 100,000 kids every year around the world to do good deed projects for things that are important to them, for causes and for charities that they're passionate about, and they're really changing the world one good deed at a time. We're continuing, I hope everyone is doing safe and being well. It's been a challenging year for everyone, but I'm happy to say the Loukoumi Foundation has been thriving thanks to virtual technology, especially. We are continuing to help kids in the Loukoumi Foundation treatment room at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, in our curriculum in over 300 schools and at the Westchester Children's Museum. And we have some really exciting projects coming up too. We're going to be working with the wonderful celebrity chef Maria Loy, coming up with a project with the floating hospital. Maria probably served more meals during the pandemic to first responders than anybody I know, and we're excited to work on that project with her. Beckett Potter from our Kids Club board, you'll meet in a little bit, is organizing a wonderful program with Blue Origin for space program where we can send good deed messages on postcards into space. So stay tuned for some more information about that. And then later today, you'll hear about our great new partnership with Pitch In for Baseball and Softball, where we are collecting equipment, baseball equipment, softball equipment for schools and communities in need. And we're also going to be fundraising to refurbish a baseball field, build a field of dreams, if you will, for a community or area in need. And we'll be accepting grant proposals for that. So very exciting things coming up. Starting with our featured event today, I would like to tell you a little bit about Bob Costas. Bob is a 29-time Emmy Award winner. He's been recognized with awards and nominations in the categories of hosting, play-by-play, writing, journalism, news, and entertainment. And he is the only broadcaster in television history to win Emmys for news, sports, and entertainment. Bob has been named the National Sportscaster of the Year a record 8 times. He is a member of the Broadcasters Wing of the Baseball Hall of Fame and the National Sportscasters and Sports Writers Hall of Fame. Among his many honors, Bob was also selected for a Walter Cronkite Award for distinction in journalism. Bob, as you know, hosted a dozen Olympics for NBC. Bob, we miss you. He was also part of the coverage of 8 Super Bowls, 7 World Series, 10 NBC Finals, and 7 Kentucky Derbies. Over the past 4 decades, Bob's work both in and out of sports for NBC, HBO, and the Major League Baseball Network have won widespread praise. He's often been referred to as his generation's most respected sports broadcaster. He grew up in Long Island, attended Syracuse University. His professional career began at KMOX Radio in St. Louis in 1974, and he began his network in 1980. What that bio doesn't say, though, is what a wonderful humanitarian and philanthropist Bob is as well. Bob, in all the years that I've known you, and I can't believe it's been 29 years, you've never said no to me, and I appreciate that. And I'd like to, you probably were expecting this, but I'd like to show you a small clip from when we honored you 29 years ago at the Hellenic Times Scholarship Fund Gala. John and Margot Katsimatidis and I presented you with this award. And then many years later, you commented on this. So let's take a look at a quick video.
Take a look at this. I think I was honored. I don't know for sure what I did to deserve it, but I was happy to be honored at the 2nd annual Hellenic Times Gala. Take a look at this. They hand me the beautiful award, and I damn near drop it. But look at the reflexes. I was younger then. A miraculous save, and the thing is intact and still in a place of honor on my mantle.
We were all a lot younger then. I had hair up to here. And
Well, I still have my hair, but
I should have given you a baseball glove, Bob, to catch that award. But it was a great memory. 29 years. You've never said no. Anything I've asked you to do for St. Jude Children's Hospital, the Hellenic Times Scholarship Fund, for the Loukoumi Make a Difference Foundation, of course. And then I'll never forget, a few years back, you invited my son, who you know is interested in baseball, to Citi Field, to the broadcast booth. You've done so much for the game, for all sports, not only for the sport, but also on a humanitarian level. Your work with children, with the Bob Costas Cancer Center at the Cardinal Glennon Children's Medical Center. You were a humanitarian 29 years ago, and you're a humanitarian today. So thank you, Bob. And I give it over to you.
Well, Nick, thank you very much. I guess what you've mentioned, and I hope I'm worthy of some of it, ties in with the whole Loukoumi idea, the Loukoumi Foundation, the work that you've done. The idea for someone as fortunate as I have been is to pay it forward in whatever way you can. I've always felt that the idea of celebrity, especially the way it's presently understood, the celebrity culture in this country, is pretty stupid. I don't think young people should aspire to be, as their first desire, Instagram influencers or as famous as the Kardashians. But there's a difference between celebrity and the recognition that comes, a reasonable amount of recognition that comes from doing a good job at something that people enjoy. And when you have that kind of recognition, you're in a position to use that recognition to help other people. Maybe it's to fundraise, maybe it's just to put a smile on a kid's face because kids relate to sports and what they see on television more readily than some other things. So I've tried to do that throughout my life. And I don't think in that respect that I'm much different than some of my colleagues in broadcasting and some of the best people that I've met through sports, athletes, coaches, other people involved. And if people are wondering, since this is a baseball and softball themed event, this is during the pandemic, my home studio. And just above me, if I could figure out how to widen the shot, but I'm not so great technically, it says Studio 24/7. This is for my appearances on the Major League Baseball Network. 24 is Willie Mays and 7 is Mickey Mantle, the two greatest players along with Hank Aaron of my childhood. The MLB Network has a Studio 42 in honor of Jackie Robinson, and a Studio 3 for Babe Ruth, and a Studio 21 for Roberto Clemente. And when the pandemic hit, I suggested that they create this home studio for me, Studio 24/7, indicating not just Willie and Mickey, but indicating that I was available around the clock, as long as I just had to roll out of bed and stand in front of this thing from home. So I've actually been able to do just as many things without leaving my house under COVID conditions as I would have in a normal year. Hope we have our fingers crossed that that'll change and we'll be back to the ballparks and back to something that feels a lot closer to normal sooner rather than later. But for the time being, here I am in Studio 24/7.
Well, we're happy to have you with us, Bob, today. And, you say that, a lot of famous people do wonderful things, but, you've really been an example. And that's why we wanted you here today. You're a perfect role model for all these kids to follow. And, and what you said about, people doing things good, doing good in the world, these kids are doing it because they're excited about it. It's not a chore, things that they want to do, especially like with this baseball project that we're doing. They love baseball and they're getting to share their love of the game with others. So thank you for everything.
Well, that's a love that I share. I like all sports, but baseball has always been my favorite. And when I see kids playing baseball, it used to be things change over time. In my generation, you never went past a ball field or, for that matter, an empty lot that could be used as a ball field without seeing some kids playing. There were organized games, Little League and high school, junior high school, organized games, but we didn't need to have uniforms and umpires and coaches to get up a game. The world has changed a lot. parents don't feel as comfortable as they once did with a kid on a summer day just hopping on his or her bike and pedaling off to the nearest ball field and finding a handful of other kids to play with. And a lot of times these days, when I drive past a beautifully manicured baseball field, and unless there's an actual organized game going on with uniforms and coaches and parents in the stands, that field is empty. It's almost calling out to me, or at least calling out to the boy version of Bob Costas. So I'm very glad to see that the boys and girls on this Zoom get together and associated with the foundation share my interest in baseball and in softball. It's one thing to be a fan and to watch and follow, but especially when you're young, get out there and play.
Well, that's great advice, and I'm sure all these kids will. We're very excited for the new season coming up, and of course, all the seasons of all the kids as well. Well, Bob, we've got some great kids from all around the country who would love to ask you some questions and hear your thoughts. We'd like to start with Mateo Lambert from Vienna, Virginia. Mateo?
Hi, thank you for spending time with us today, by the way, Mr. Costas. And
you're welcome, Mateo, and congratulations on your Cardinal jersey. I know you're from Virginia, but your dad is from near St. Louis, so he grew up as a Redbird fan, so that's cool.
And as I was saying, it's a true honor to ask someone great like you these questions.
Thank you.
And so can you talk about how sports can inspire and unite people throughout society?
Yes, you know, there are problems in sports as there are in every walk of life, but at its best, sports does several things. It connects us across the generations. When I was your age, or someone now of your generation, it might be difficult to talk about various things in the world with your parents or your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, but an interest in sports is something that connects young people with older people, storytelling. And baseball is particularly good in that respect because the nature of the game, it's not as fast paced. So it's a conversational game. So just that connection, that's something to do. It's about the game, yes. But if a family or a group of friends tailgate at a college or NFL football game, or if part of their life is going to basketball games or hockey games or baseball games, it isn't just that they're following the game, it's their reason for getting together. It's their reason for sharing memories and sharing each other's company. And the other thing about sports that I think is important is that it can be a metaphor, an example of excellence. We like to see people who are talented give us an example of the very best of what human beings can do. Now, athletic excellence is not the only way that people can excel, but it's one way, and it's an accessible way that we can watch. Sometimes millions of us can watch. I'm going to watch my alma mater, Syracuse, play Houston tonight in the NCAA basketball tournament. My friends from college going on 50 years ago, I'll hear from them. They're spread all over the country. They're doing whatever it is they do. But now Syracuse is going deep into the tournament, and that reconnects us. That's something about sports that's almost irreplaceable. It's hard to think of anything else that is exactly the same as that. And when you see people dedicated, because it isn't just the performance in the game, or think of the Olympics, which we pay attention to once every 4 years, but all the preparation, all the time, all the hard work, all the practice that goes into getting to that point. That's a good example for us, no matter what it is. You want to learn to play the piano? Some of the same things apply. You want to be a writer? Getting better at it, practicing at it. The same notions of excellence and dedication to craft apply. So those are some of the best things about sports that I think can inspire all of us.
Great. Thank you, Mateo.
Thank you.
Now let's go to Lansdale, Pennsylvania, to Alexandra Kim.
Hello, Mr. Costas.
Hi,
Thank you
Alexandra.
for joining us today.
Mm-hmm.
So my question for you is, what advice or tips do you have for someone interested in public speaking or broadcast journalism?
Well, two things. Read as much as you possibly can. You know, the present circumstances in media have shortened our attention span. And it's perfectly fine to Google something, to catch up on the news, to see the headlines, to check it on YouTube now and then. But where you really gain an appreciation of language is to read at length, to read lengthy stories in newspapers or magazines, to read books, to read the great novels as you get older. Even if you don't want to be a novelist, the reading that I did, I think, enhanced my vocabulary. It enhanced my frame of reference. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, but I think having a frame of reference somewhat broader than sports made me a better sports broadcaster. The other thing you need to keep in mind is none of us, myself definitely included, is going to be as good the first time we try to do something on the air as we hope to ultimately become. So don't be too hard on yourself. The first time you hear yourself on tape, and now it's much easier. Now we can do a selfie video of ourselves in 2 seconds. I never heard myself on the air until I was 18 years old and a freshman at Syracuse. And I did something on the campus radio station. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is terrible. My voice sounds terrible. My diction isn't what I want it to be. But I worked at it. I kept working at it and trying to get better. So I think that that's important. And I think it's important to get as well-rounded an education as you possibly can, because you never know, you might detour to something else. Or there's so many jobs in television or in whatever we call media now, which is expanding even as we speak. There's so many jobs besides being in front of the camera, besides being a broadcaster or an actor or actress. There's so many jobs beyond that. And then there are other paths in life. So the better educated you are overall, the better you'll be able to pivot if your original intention doesn't turn out to be the way you ultimately go.
You know, Bob, you reminded me a few years back, we did a Loukoumi celebrity cookbook, and you had given your family's recipe for dolmades, which we still have on our website. But in that book, there's a story at the beginning, one of the Loukoumi children's stories, where Loukoumi's trying to bake this perfect cake and everything goes wrong. They drop the eggs, spills the milk. But the lesson in the book, the line is that the secret ingredient is never give up. And that's kind of what you were saying about, about teaching kids that, it may not go well at first, but you got to keep trying.
Yeah, the idea is aim high, but especially when you're young, don't be too hard on yourself if you're not reaching those heights right away, because it's a process. You don't snap your fingers and wind up at the goal. You got to make your way toward it.
Absolutely. That's a great advice. Now we have a video question from Aiden Stewart from Mount Vernon, New York.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Costas. This is
Hi,
Aiden Stewart from Mount Vernon, New York. My question for you is, have you played any sports when you were younger? If so, what was your favorite?
Thanks, Aiden. Well, like almost every kid, when I was growing up, we played just about everything in the schoolyard, basketball and football. We played tackle football without any equipment. It's a wonder some of us weren't killed, especially because I wasn't among the bigger of the kids. And baseball. Baseball was always my favorite. I played second base. I was pretty good. And I could really shoot in basketball, Aiden, but I couldn't shoot if anyone guarded me. That was the problem. If I was wide open, I was probably the best shooter in my high school. I once made, I'm just answering your question here, in a practice, wasn't in the course of a game where you're sweating and out of rhythm, but in practice with somebody rebounding and returning the ball to me so you get in the rhythm. I once made 91 out of 100 free throws when I was in high school. And when the coach cut me from the team, I was the last man cut before they set the roster. He said, well, if it was just a foul shooting contest, I'd keep you on the team, but I can't do that. So they had to cut me. And the baseball coach, again, I was the last guy cut. And he said, you're pretty good with the glove, but I don't think you can hit your weight. And I don't think you weigh 130, which might have been true when I was 16 years old. And as you know, a batting average of 130 is not so good. So he had to send me on my way, but he sent me on my way. And this is true with good advice. He said, have you ever thought about broadcasting? And this is like 1968, 1969. And I said, you know, that's pretty much all I think about. And he said he had a wry sense of humor. He goes, good, try that. And he sent me on my way.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, I think it was better to take that route than trying to keep on playing.
No, it's great. You know, Bob, we do the, which you know, because you participated in, we do our Loukoumi Dream Day program where we have kids live a day in their dream career. And what I always tell kids is that you never know, you know, you have to try for your dream, and you never know. You may make it, but if you don't try, you'll never know. But along the way, you may realize that you may not want to be a baseball player. Maybe you want to be a coach or a manager or an actor. Instead of an actor, maybe you'll be a screenwriter or a cinematographer.
That's right.
But if you don't go on that journey, you'll never know. You know, I always like to write. I never knew that years later I'd write a children's book series about a fluffy lamb. You know, just never thought it would happen. But you never know what's going to happen. So great advice again, Bob. Appreciate it. And just to let you know, the kids who submitted video questions are not here because they're on the field today and they're playing baseball and softball.
Better yet. Better yet.
And we're going to send them a video of this after the fact, but we didn't want them to miss their games.
Cool.
But now we're going to go live to Dallas, Texas, to an amazing kid, Beckett Potter, who's on our Kids Club board. Beckett?
Hello, Mr. Costas. My name is Beckett Potter, and I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Hey, Beckett. Like your hat.
Thanks. First, I wanted to congratulate you, and I just wanted to say that you're truly amazing, and I wanted to congratulate you on your induction into the Baseball Hall of Fame. I'm wearing my Yankees cap because I understand you're a Yankees fan.
Well, I grew up as a Yankee fan. I'm a little bit partial to the Cardinals. The Yankees are my American League team. The Cardinals are my National League team because out of college, I went to St. Louis and lived there for a very long time. And my kids grew up in St. Louis, so they're Cardinal fans. So my only conflict would be if the Cardinals and Yankees ever met in the World Series.
Yes. I have a two-part question for you. Over your career, what is your most memorable moment in broadcast journalism? Also, what was one of your most challenging interviews? Thank you.
Thank you, Beckett. Well, it's so hard. I've been so blessed to be part of so many big events to pick only one, but I'm going to narrow it down to two. And believe me, that discards dozens and dozens that are worthy of mention. I called the Bulls against the Jazz 1998 NBA Finals, which was Michael Jordan's last season with the Bulls. And really, it marked the end of his epic NBA career. He came back 3 years later to play with the Washington Wizards for a couple of seasons, just because I guess he still had some competitive fire. But the way it really ended dramatically was Michael Jordan making a last-second shot against the Utah Jazz in Game 6 of that NBA final. They were down by a point. He made the basket that won the championship. He was the MVP. It was the sixth championship for the Bulls. He was the MVP in all six NBA finals. Arguably the greatest player in NBA history, certainly the player that defined that era. That game is still the most highly rated NBA game in history because it was a different television landscape then. And the Bulls were just such a transcendently popular team, and Michael Jordan, a transcendently popular athlete, that even people who weren't avid basketball fans wanted to watch Michael Jordan and the Bulls. So being part of that moment, which people still talk about now 23 years later, that was a big thing. And I did, as Nick mentioned, I was one of the hosts of a dozen Olympics. And the single most memorable moment for me was in the opening ceremony in Atlanta in 1996, when Muhammad Ali, the great former heavyweight champion, lit the torch. He was the final person, the final torchbearer. And it was a very dramatic scene in the stadium in Atlanta when Muhammad Ali took the torch and lit the Olympic flame.
Wow. And also, what was one of your most challenging interviews?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You know, a lot of times people think that the most challenging are the ones where there's some hostility or some tension. And I haven't had too many of those, but I have had some. I had one with Vince McMahon who ran what was then called the World Wrestling Federation. Now it's called World Wrestling Entertainment. And as you know, whether you like wrestling or not, you have to realize that wrestling is fixed. It's phony. Pro wrestling is. So all the interviews are also staged and they're scripted. Vince McMahon was not used to being asked straightforward journalistic questions. And I put him on the spot with some tough questions, and he became very hostile and very angry. And the interview was live, and it was supposed to go 15 minutes, but the producer was in my ear saying, hey, this is really good, keep going. So it went nearly half an hour. I think it went 28 minutes, and a lot of it was almost face-to-face, nose-to-nose tension. And people still talk about it. It was like 20 years ago, and they still talk about it. But actually, what's more difficult than that is when the interview subject just isn't responsive. When you wonder to yourself, why are you even here? Why did you agree to do this if you don't want to answer these questions, or if you seem bored or detached and that you're not interested? Those are the hardest ones, where you have to really work to pull something out of somebody. So that's actually more challenging than someone who wants to punch you in the nose.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Beckett.
Thanks, Beckett. Keep doing all the great stuff that you're doing, okay? Bob, now we're going to go closer to home for you. We have Justin Sather in Los Angeles, California. Justin?
Hi, Mr. Costas.
Hi, Justin.
My name is Justin, and I live in Los Angeles. I'm learning to use my voice to make change for the environment.
Mm-hmm.
My question for you is, what broadcasting advice do you have to strengthen my voice and my message?
Well, the message is a matter of thinking and getting together with, whether it's your parents or teachers, and someone who can help you shape that message. That will evolve over time. But as for your voice, there's two things. One, at your age, your voice is going to change. You're going to reach puberty and your voice will change. It will get lower. But even then, you can work on your voice. Way back when I was in college, I had a speech and drama professor. And he told me, it seemed silly, and especially because I had a roommate, like you always do in a dormitory in college, and I would wait until he had gone to class or something, but sometimes I was annoying him because my professor told me to put my hand down here in the diaphragm, like around your rib cage, and go, oh. And if you could feel the vibration on your hand all the way down there, then it was supposedly making your voice a little more authoritative, a little more fulsome. Maybe when I was 19, 20 years old, I needed that. Those things help. You want to make sure that your diction is good. One of the things a veteran broadcaster told me when I was first starting at NBC, he said, do you ever encounter a veteran broadcaster or an older person who speaks very, very rapidly? The answer is no, seldom, if ever. He said, the more rapidly you speak, it makes you seem immature. Now, there are differences there. Sometimes on a sports event, a hockey power play or a fast break in basketball, you need to speak rapidly. But generally speaking, slow down, not to a snail's pace, but slow down, pace yourself, and make sure that you enunciate, speak clearly, that you don't swallow syllables. But a lot of this is going to come to you as you get older. It's going to come just naturally with maturity.
And Justin, you keep doing all the great things you're doing for the environment. Okay, very proud of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Justin.
Okay, well, now we're going to go to a video question from Ruby Kate Chitsey from Harrison, Arkansas.
Hi, my name is Ruby Kate Chitsey, and I'm the founder of 3 Wishes for Ruby's Residence. I do not play sports at all, but kindness is my hobby. Who is the kindest baseball player you've ever met, and why was it important to you to meet them?
It's a good question. It's another one where I could probably provide dozens of answers. There are so many baseball players today who are involved in community efforts. Mark Teixeira, who recently retired only a few years ago, played for the Yankees, played for the Rangers, played for the Braves, had a very, very good career, more than 300 lifetime home runs, switch hitting first baseman. He was so involved in charitable things, including something that connects to what we're talking about today, the RBI program, which stands for Reviving Baseball in the Inner Cities. A lot of inner city kids who would like to play baseball don't have the equipment or don't have the fields on which to play. And the RBI program does the very thing that the Loukoumi Foundation is talking about today, building or refurbishing ball fields for baseball and softball and providing equipment as well as educational opportunities for kids. So he's one that comes to mind. There are so many others. You'd be so surprised to learn how many athletes do charitable work. And this is especially true now with salaries being what they are in pro sports now. A lot of these athletes become wealthy, and a healthy percentage of them are willing to share that wealth or use that wealth to establish foundations of their own. So I mentioned Mark Teixeira, but there are many others.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And thank you, Ruby Kate Chitsey. Now we're going to go to a great softball player from Eastchester, New York, Taylor Niclario.
Hi, Mr. Costas. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Taylor.
What advice would you give to a young player who wants to succeed at softball or baseball?
Well, it's kind of cliched advice, but it's the truth. Practice makes perfect. And especially for those people who have the means, and not everybody does, but practice is so much easier now than it used to be. Practice year round. There are indoor facilities with pitching machines. There are videos now that can break down a pitcher or a hitter's mechanics. I think it's important to get good coaching. You want to enjoy playing. You don't want to be so overcoached that you lose the joy of playing, but learning how to play the game properly, learning the fundamentals, and getting in enough reps, whatever it is. When I'm wondering, I've done baseball games for 40 years, but last year I didn't do any baseball games because of the pandemic. And so I'm wondering whether I'll be a little rusty when I go back this year. You need the reps to get in the groove, even at this point, and even if you're talking about my profession. So playing as often as you can. And to me, that means don't only confine it to organized games. Get out in the backyard and play catch. Get up a pickup game. Have somebody hit you ground balls or fly balls. The more that muscle memory seeps in, the better off you're going to be.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to Kyle Stewart from Mount Vernon, New York, who is also on the baseball field today and sent in a video question.
Hey, Mr. Costas. My name is Kyle Stewart, and I'm from Mount Vernon, New York. I have a question for you. When did you realize you wanted to be a sports commentator, and why? Thank you.
Well, Kyle, I think the notion first crossed my mind when I was 9, 10, 11 years old. I couldn't separate the soundtrack of the games that I followed and loved. I couldn't separate that soundtrack from the games themselves. So these names may not mean anything to you because they come from a different era, but Red Barber and Mel Allen and Marty Glickman and Vin Scully, that's what those games sounded like to me. And later, Marv Albert doing the Knicks games on radio and television. And I wasn't alone in this. A lot of us, we went to shoot baskets in the schoolyard, or throwing a rubber ball or a tennis ball off a wall and making up an imaginary game in our heads. We were doing play-by-play of that. However clumsily and crudely, we were doing play-by-play. So I think that notion took hold when I was 9 or 10 years old, kind of the romance of the airwaves. Radio was more important then than it is now because not as many games were available on television. And radio has what they used to call the theater of the mind. The broadcaster had to be capable enough with words and images to create that theater of the mind for the listeners, to paint a picture. On television, your job is generally to put a caption beneath the picture that's already there. But on radio, your job is to paint the entire picture and hopefully do it vividly. And I was impressed by and engaged by those broadcasters of my youth who did that. And I remember thinking when I was very young, maybe this is something I'd like to do.
Great, thank you, Bob, and thank you, Kyle.
Let me add one thing to that, Nick, and it kind of ties into some of the other questions. When you move on educationally, if you have a goal, whatever the goal might be, in my case, it was broadcasting, you want to select a college or university, if possible, depending on your circumstances, that has a very strong reputation in that area. So that's why I went to Syracuse University. Even in the early 70s, they had a reputation for being ahead of the curve when it came to education and broadcasting, not just print journalism, but radio and television. And since then, I can't even keep track of the number of prominent broadcasters who have come out of Syracuse. And they let you work as an undergraduate on the campus radio and television facilities right away. My first broadcast was like a month into my freshman year. So whether it's broadcasting or some other field that you're interested in, finding a college that lets you kind of learn, make your mistakes, learn on the job, in effect. You can learn a lot in the classroom and you want to excel in the classroom. But if you want to be a broadcaster, for example, the only way to learn if you can do it or not is to do it on the air. So whatever it may be, you want to be a writer, make sure that the university you attend or intend to attend has writers' workshops and has some sort of reputation and quality of instruction in that area.
Bob, that's an excellent point because so many of the kids on our call today are in high school looking towards college. So great thing for them to keep in mind. So thank you for adding that. Mm-hmm. Now we go to another video question. Oliver Chitsey from Arkansas.
Hello, I'm Oliver Chitsey, and I'm the Kid Board President for 3 Wishes of Ruby's Residence. It's an honor to be here. My question for you today is, what is your favorite baseball player and why?
I think I heard that. On the videos, the audio is a little more faint than it is on the live questions, but Oliver's question was, who was my favorite baseball player?
Yes.
Okay. Well, again, I think the players that make the greatest impression on you are those that caught your eye and captured your heart when you were a kid. And so these 2 guys are perfect examples. And I grew up in New York. The Giants, Willie Mays' Giants, had left after the 1957 season when I was just 5 years old. They had left to go out to San Francisco. And the Dodgers had left to go to Brooklyn. So once there were 3 teams in New York. But then, as I was first learning about baseball, there was only one, the Yankees, because the Mets didn't come into existence until 1962. So when I attended my first baseball games, when I started watching them on television, listening to them on the radio, the Yankees were the team in New York. And this guy, Mickey Mantle, was not only their greatest player, he was one of the greatest players of all time. He won 3 Most Valuable Player awards. He won the Triple Crown, led the league in home runs, batting average, and RBIs in 1956. He played in 12 World Series, and the Yankees won 7 of them. So he was one of the golden boys of the age, and he became my favorite player. But later on in life, when I took some of my baseball recollections from childhood to the broadcast booth and sometimes told those stories on the air, it was very gratifying to me to encounter so many fans whose comment to me was something like this. I didn't grow up a Mickey Mantle fan. I grew up in Detroit. My favorite player was Al Kaline. Or I grew up a Cub fan. My favorite player was Ernie Banks. Or I grew up in St. Louis and my favorite player was Stan Musial. Or generations later, it might have been Ozzie Smith. But I understand what you're talking about when you talk about Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays. I understand how a player like that can get into a kid's imagination. And once it's there, it's always a part of you. So while I admire current day players and respect them very much and can objectively comment on how good and sometimes great they are, it's just a different thing when you think back to the legends of your childhood. They have a different place in your imagination.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Bob. Our last two questions are write-in questions. The first one is from Pat Burns from Newport Beach, California. And Pat is the co-founder and executive director of the Orange County Children's Book Festival. And she wants to know that since the Loukoumi Make a Difference Foundation started with children's books, she wants to know, what children's books did your children enjoy when they were growing up?
Well, I don't know if it's a children's book, but my daughter, who teaches ninth grade English literature, went to Boston College and later got a master's in education at Columbia. She read all the Harry Potter books from whenever the first one came out. She was an avid reader. From the time that she was 6 or 7 years old, she wouldn't just read what she was required to read for school. She'd read for her own pleasure and entertainment, even during the summertime. Now, when I was reading to them, Dr. Seuss was certainly part of it. When they were very little, Goodnight Moon. I'm sure that all the kids have had their parents read Goodnight Moon to them when they were really little kids, and their parents were just trying to get them to be quiet and go to sleep. So that and Dr. Seuss, Dr. Seuss ran into, who hasn't been around in a long time, Dr. Seuss became somewhat controversial over the last couple of weeks, but Dr. Seuss and all of his books, 99% of them, have brought people, young and old, great pleasure for generations and generations. And I hope we don't lose that.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Bob. Our last question was also written in, and I'm going to introduce my son, Constantine, who you've met at Citi Field, who was also heading the new project with Pitch In for Baseball, and he's going to ask the last question.
Hi again, Mr. Costas.
Hi.
I'm going to be asking a question that Ernie Anastas sent in. So he wrote, Bob.
Ernie Anastas sent in this question?
Yeah.
Yes.
He said,
all right.
Congrats on all of your hard work over the many wonderful years. What do you want to do next in your career?
Well, I would like to do only the things that matter most to me. I've been lucky enough, now in my 60s, as your dad mentioned, I hosted a dozen Olympics. I did 10 NBA finals, 7 or 8 World Series, a bunch of Kentucky Derbies, bunch of Super Bowls. So I don't really need to be in front of the biggest audiences at the biggest events anymore. But I love being at the Major League Baseball Network because I just love baseball and I love its history. And they use me in a very thoughtful way. Sad to say, over the past year, 10 Hall of Famers passed away, beginning with Al Kaline last April, and then through January, between April of last year and January of this year, 10 Hall of Famers passed away. That's very sad, but I knew all 10 of them. And I was able to provide recollections and some context and history for the audience of the Major League Baseball Network. You know, being around for a while has its advantages and its disadvantages. One of the advantages, though, for sure, is that your frame of reference on the things you've covered is just deeper. It ought to be deeper than someone who's 25 or 30 years old. So I like my role at the Major League Baseball Network. And I'm also working on something that will be announced soon, but isn't official yet. It was to have started last year, but we put it off because of the pandemic circumstances. But now that it seems like we can cautiously enter back into the swing of things, I'm going to go back to doing the kind of long form interviews and journalistic stuff related to sports that I used to do at various times, both at NBC and at HBO. So I'm going to return to that kind of programming. And that really is what I want to do. I don't care as much about how large the audience is. I do care about how appreciative it is. And I think that what I'm doing now and intend to do in the near future will find an appreciative audience.
Well, Bob, you will not find a more appreciative audience than the people on this Zoom today. We can't thank you enough. We just got a message in our chat box where someone said what an inspiration you are.
Thank you.
Children, you've been an inspiration to me from when I met you 29 years ago. You know, thank you for being a perfect role model for all of us to follow in everything that you do. And we wish you nothing but the best. And I can't thank you enough for being with us today.
Nick, thank you so much. None of us are perfect. I'm sure I'm not a perfect role model, but I do the best I can.
Well, you're pretty close. And now I hope you'll take a look at, stay with us, Bob, and watch this video that we put on our new partnership with Pitch-In for Baseball and Softball. And I encourage all of the children and adults participating today to get involved. So let's take a look at this short video on our.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, kids.
Bob, thank you for everything.
Hi, my name is Constantine, and from a young age, I've always enjoyed playing baseball.
Hi, I'm Constantine from the Ann Hutchinson School. When I grow up, I want to be a Major League Baseball player because I love baseball.
Not only have I enjoyed playing, but also going to Mets games with my family and teaching others to play the game. For Make a Difference Day every year, I've always wanted to create projects to help causes that interest me. I started in 2013 by raising money and collecting pet care items for the New Rochelle Humane Society. In 2015, I decided that I wanted to help kids play baseball, so I started an equipment drive. First, I teamed up with the Fordham University baseball team, who donated equipment which we collected at a university football game. We continued our collection in Eastchester at an event at Holy Trinity Church. We then identified a school in Jamaica and the Caribbean through the Joey Foundation and shipped the equipment there. I also had a fundraiser where I purchased additional equipment, including sets of bases to donate to the school. Through the support of Fordham, Eastchester, Holy Trinity, and the Joey Foundation, we were able to collect enough equipment for 6 schools. From 2018 to 2020, I continued by holding ping pong and basketball tournaments to raise additional funds for the project. Last year, I learned about an organization called Pitch-In for Baseball and Softball, which promotes youth baseball development by providing equipment directly to leagues, schools, and organizations around the world. In the spring of 2020, I shipped a box of equipment there from our latest drive, and it inspired me to want to do something more. So we reached out to Meredith Kim, the CEO of Pitch-In for Baseball and Softball, and decided to collaborate on an exciting new partnership where we will once again be collecting equipment and monetary donations to help refurbish a baseball field for a school in need. This is how you can help. Visit our website at loukoumiffoundation.org/baseball. There you can click on Donate Equipment and it will direct you to the page on the Pitch-In for Baseball and Softball website with all the instructions on donating your equipment. It can be something slightly used that you have outgrown or something that you may want to purchase from a sporting goods store. On the Loukoumi Foundation website, you will see a Make a Donation button where you can make a $5 donation or more to help us fund a new field for a school in need. Your donation will be recognized on that page with your names listed below. On the same webpage, you will also see a grant application. So if you know of a school or community in need of a field renovation, send them the link and encourage them to apply. Applications are due by June 30th, and we will make the announcement of the grant recipients on Make a Difference Day on October 23rd. Join us in helping other kids enjoy baseball and softball as much as we do. Together, we can make a difference. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Constantine, and thank you to Jacob Niclario, a great 16-year-old student here in Eastchester who edited that video for us. Appreciate that, Jacob. And to all of you on this call, I hope you'll get involved. I know that you love baseball and softball as much as Bob and I do and everyone else. And we want you to get involved with this project. Visit the site, get your friends involved. Let's share what we love with others. And I'd now like to call on Meredith Kim, the CEO of Pitch-In for Baseball and Softball, so she can tell us a little bit about all the wonderful things that she and her organization have been doing for years for baseball and softball. Meredith, welcome.
Thank you. We thank you for having us here today. I feel so fortunate. We feel so fortunate. The dean found us last year and connected with us because it has really led to what is really one of our most unique partnerships and in totally uncharted territory for us. Well, we were founded in 2005, right after actually Hurricane Katrina devastated the Gulf Coast. And fortuitously, we were in the offices with Little League at the time, and they had a problem, and we were going to offer a solution. We spent the following months collecting equipment to help rebuild about a dozen leagues in Texas and Louisiana and help those kids recover and have that season as scheduled. From there, we've kind of just grown and expanded. We are a global nonprofit organization. We have helped, we've gotten equipment to more than 110 countries internationally and every state in the US. Our sole mission is to remove equipment as the barrier to play. And we work with partners like Wilson Sporting Goods, industry leaders like Major League Baseball's RBI program, MLB clubs, and Little League to ensure that we can get equipment to the kids that need it the most. And on the flip side, we also have the pleasure of working with a couple hundred passionate baseball fans who really just love the game and want to see more kids be able to access the same opportunities that they might have had as a child. So between these two, we are able to collect this equipment and get it to the kids to play ball and make sure that equipment is never a barrier to play. You know, we've learned a lot over the years. We celebrated our 15th anniversary last year, and I would say that we have learned the greatest lessons from over the immediate past year. We now see with greater clarity the magic and power of baseball and softball on kids. It's a naturally socially distanced activity, and during a time when we're not really supposed to be close to one another and our loved ones, it really offers a really great way for kids to connect with one another and to get outside and really just kind of have some pockets of fun. But it's also become a bit of a problem. There's some challenges. The economy has made it now that parents who were able to afford registration fees last year may not be in the same position to do so this year. And with CDC guidelines now requiring all kids have their own equipment to play, every child needs their own glove, they need their own helmet, they need their own bat. They need to have all of this in order to be able to play and follow guidelines. So leagues are more strained and schools are more strained than ever, and they need more help than ever. And so this partnership with Loukoumi Foundation really is unique. It allows us to provide these leagues and schools with an opportunity to really address their greatest area of need, albeit equipment or field support. And for us, in the space of trying to remove the barriers to play, this one addresses even greater. It's not just equipment. There's other needs that people have in order to be able to play safely this year. So we just want to thank Loukoumi Foundation, Nick, Dean, for this terrific opportunity. And we really look forward to the kind of difference and the impact that we're going to make together.
Well, we do too, Meredith. Thank you for that. And you know, what we're doing together here really shows all kids that no good deed is too small. You know, they can have an old piece of equipment that they may have outgrown that's still in perfect shape. And all they're going to do is share it so that it gets more life and more use out of it. And even their $5 donation, you know, we did a project with St. Jude Children's Hospital where we had kids make a card for a patient and donate $1. We raised over $62,000, and now we have the Loukoumi Foundation treatment room at St. Jude Children's Hospital, sponsored by these kids' $1 donations. So imagine with a $5 donation from each kid, what we can do to help with this project. We're very excited to work with you. Kids, parents, please go to loukoumiffoundation.org/baseball and take a closer look at what we're doing. We really can all make a difference together, and we're very excited to be embarking on this journey with all of you. Before we leave you today, another quick thank you to all of the kids from around the country who sent in their great questions. Of course, to Bob Costas for being, as I mentioned before, a legendary role model and someone we can all look up to. Thank you, Bob. And speaking of Bob, he narrated our book, Loukoumi Saves a Park, a couple of years ago. and we actually have that narration. So we are going to leave you with the ebook of Loukoumi Saves a Park, narrated by Bob Costas. Everyone enjoy, have a wonderful weekend, and look forward to seeing all of you on the baseball and softball field. Take care.
Loukoumi Saves a Park by Nick Katsouris, narrated by Bob Costas.
When can I get this back?
It was a beautiful spring day. Loukoumi and her friends were playing baseball in the park. Fistiki was at bat. Dean was catching. Marika, with her speedy legs, covered the outfield, and Loukoumi was pitching. It was the last inning. Fistiki was down to his final strike. Loukoumi tossed the pitch. Fistiki swung and knocked the ball over the fence. Home run! Way to go, me! Fistiki cheered, doing his victory dance. Great game, Loukoumi said, congratulating her friend. I'm hungry, Dean added. I brought lunch, Marika said, taking sandwiches, carrot sticks, apples, juice boxes, and cookies out of her picnic basket. The friends talked and laughed and ate, while Fistiki bragged about his home run. When Fistiki was done, he dropped his juice box on the ground and started walking away. Let's play another game, he said. Not so fast, Marika scolded. A park is a place for one and all to have a picnic or play some ball. But it's up to us to keep it clean, plant a tree, and make the world green. The trash will mount if we don't act, and the environment will suffer. That's a fact. It's up to us to make this right before it's too late and we lose the fight. So let's support nature. What do you say? Let's make a difference, and let's start today. The friends then looked around and noticed garbage everywhere. Bottles, cans, bags, and wrappers were littered across the park. Wow, I never realized how bad the park looked before, Loukoumi said. As the friends started cleaning up, Police Officer Gus appeared. What's going on? Fistiki asked. The town is closing the park because no one takes care of it. Look here. Even the birds have left, Officer Gus said, pointing to an abandoned nest. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to find somewhere else to play. How could this happen? Loukoumi asked. It takes a lot of work to preserve the environment, Marika said. I visited a rainforest in Hawaii once, and it was one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen, because people worked hard to preserve its natural beauty. We can do that here, too. I'll go to Hawaii, Fistiki said. I've always wanted to surf the waves. Stop joking, Fistiki. This is serious, Marika said. We can work in our own homes to conserve energy, Loukoumi noted, by not leaving the water running too long, or by closing lights and electrical appliances when we do not need them, Dean added. And we can recycle, Fistiki chimed in. Great ideas, Marika said. Let's make a difference, and let's start today with our park. Loukoumi and her friends didn't want to lose their park, and they did everything they could to make it better. Marika planted new trees and flowers. Loukoumi cleaned up the trash. Dean collected all the bottles and cans, and Fistiki painted the park benches. As the team put the finishing touches on the baseball field, Officer Gus returned. You kids did an amazing job, he said, and the town has agreed to keep the park open. Loukoumi and her friends cheered, while Fistiki did his victory dance again. The following week, the town threw a reopening party for the park. We would like to thank Loukoumi, Fistiki, Dean, and Marika, Officer Gus said, by presenting them our Green Medals of Honor and naming the town league the Make a Difference Baseball League. The crowd cheered. Loukoumi and her friends were so happy, and Loukoumi said, a park is a place for one and all to have a picnic or play some ball, but it's up to us to keep it clean.
So we planted a tree and made the park green. The trash will mount, but we will act and help the environment. That's a fact. So let's continue to support nature. What do you say? Let's make a difference every day.
Thank you, everyone. Again, have a wonderful weekend, and let's play ball.